Good morning. It's Monday morning, our third week in Philippians. And if you missed Pastor Holly's message yesterday, you might want to go back and watch it. So it was great. And if you missed our Sunday morning gathering at Life Coast, just know that you were missed. And we'd love to see you out there. If you watched on live stream, we're so happy that you got to catch it that way. This is your first study this week, and I'm going to kind of launch off into these first couple of verses in chapter 3, actually 2 and 3. It says, watch out for those dogs, those evildoers, those mutilators of the flesh, for it is we who are the circumcision, we who serve God by his Spirit, who boast in Christ Jesus, and who put no confidence in the flesh. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, let me tell you something. Before I became a pastor, actually there was a little overlap. But I was a correction officer in Massachusetts prison for 26 years, and for the last 7, I was a chaplain and a lieutenant, and also a pastor at my local church there in Massachusetts. And but what I can tell you is there were rules within a prison, and it was the job of the correction officer to make the rules, make the inmates adhere to the rules. And so that was our job. And so sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was difficult, but the truth of the matter is the rules were written and the rules were enforced. Now, some correction officers enforce them more than the other correction officers, and that's just normal human behavior. But the truth of the matter is that there were people assigned to enforce the rules, just like police officers and correction officers. That's what the job was. What is this talking about? What does that have to do with this message? Well, it says, watch out for those dogs, those evildoers, those mutilators of the flesh. Well, what that's talking about is actually those Pharisees and the scribes and the keepers of the law in the Jewish faith who were so adherent to the rules that they completely missed the spirit. And so when they talk about mutilators of the flesh, that's talking about the literal circumcision that Jews underwent. And that's why they call them mutilators of the flesh, because they were mandating it. They were saying, if you become a follower of Jesus, you have to do this. But what they said, what Paul is saying, what Paul has come to realize in his newfound freedom in Christ, is that it is we who are the circumcision, we who serve God by his Spirit. And what that says is, because we're indwelled by the Spirit, we walk in freedom, and that freedom brings us to do things sometimes inexplicably. I'll give you another example. When we first came down here to launch a Life Coast Church, within the first several years, we had people coming, and we were connecting with lots of people. And one guy was talking with me that I had a relationship with, or just built a friendship with, and he said he had to cut some trees down in his backyard, and he hadn't done it before and was a little apprehensive to do it by himself. And I said, well, I've cut plenty of trees down. If you need some help, I'd love to come over and give you a hand. I said, how many trees you got to cut? So he had to cut about 3 or 4 trees, and so I came over with my chainsaw, and we cut the trees down. Now, normally, in that circumstance, I was there for probably 2-3 hours with him, because it would actually ended up being about 5 trees. but in that span of time, inevitably, when someone was talking with me, the subject of God or prayer or the Bible or things of the Spirit would definitely come up in the conversation, because I would either be asked about it or the conversation would lend itself to an opening, and I would generally always take that opening. Well, I was completely led by the Spirit that I felt the Spirit say to me do not talk about Life Coast. Do not talk about the church. Just help the man with the trees. I just felt that in my spirit. I felt it in my heart, and it just seemed completely counterproductive to even why I was here. So I went that day and I worked with him. We had a great time, great conversation, talked about all kinds of things, and he didn't bring it up, so I didn't bring it up. And I just helped him with his project, and I left. Well, come to find out, several days later, I ran into the man's wife, and he said to me, I just want to thank you for helping my husband out. I won't use his name, helping my husband out. And I said, oh, it's my pleasure. I enjoyed doing it. And she said, he bet me, literally bet me $10 that the only reason that you were helping him was to try to get him to come to your church. And I told him, that doesn't seem like Pastor Jeff. I think he genuinely wants to help you. So he said, I bet you $10 that he talks to me about the church, that he talks to me about joining the church, that he talks to me about something to do with the church. And she took the bet, and she says, and I got $10. And I said, well, you know what? I said, I really felt the Spirit tell me, unless he brings it up, I'm not to talk about it. That man ended up becoming saved later because he had an influence that was completely counterintuitive to what God was trying to do in me, in us here at Life Coast Church. And so that tells you that the legalist in me says you have to tell the gospel. You have to tell the gospel. No matter what, you have to tell the gospel. Every circumstance, look for the opportunity to tell the gospel. Well, I learned an important thing that day. Sometimes God's doing something else, and you have to listen to the Spirit so you can get on the same page with him. So take it from a former correction officer. Take it from a former, people call us prison guards. I like correction officer because that's what I was. Take it from a former correction officer. It's not always about the law. It's always, though, about the Spirit. So listen to the Spirit. Learn how to listen to the Spirit. And that takes prayer and meditation and time in his word, because Paul tried the legalist way, and Jesus knocked him down at the road to Damascus and told him about a new way, a better way, and that's being led by the Spirit. So what are you going to do this week? Pray a little more, meditate a little more, read the Word a little more, but more than anything else, every day, all day, listen for the Spirit in your heart, your mind. Your heart's not up here. Your heart, your mind, your head, your spiritual ear. Listen for what the Spirit's telling you. He so desires to lead you to what God's plan is, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Love you guys. Have a great week. Bye-bye.